Hey everybody, I'm RetroPie Guy, and welcome to another episode of Forgotten Favorites, where we dive into some of our favorite retro video games that we may have forgotten about over the years. So for today's episode, we're going to dive into two of my favorite light gun games of all time, and that's Virtua Cop 1 and 2. These games were created by Sega originally for the arcade, and then later ported out to the home consoles. So what's really pivotal about these particular games is they're the first light gun games to ever incorporate real-time 3D polygon graphics with texture mapping. So basically what that means is they're the first games to introduce 3D technology into the gameplay. So if we think back to light gun games around this time period, everything else felt very two-dimensional. It felt like you were a player playing a game on a screen, which is in fact exactly what we're doing, but you didn't feel immersed in the game. With Virtua Cop, you can shoot through different things in the game like fences, gates, glass, all this stuff that just kind of brings it to life a little bit more. You have characters in the game popping up in different areas, they're rolling into the frame, they're popping up right in front of you, they're shooting bullets at you, and you can experience all of that. Everything prior to that felt like, you were shooting things that were off in the distance. So let's take Lethal Enforcers, for example. This is a classic light gun game, one of my personal favorites, in fact, but it felt very much like you were shooting things really far away from you. You didn't feel up close and personal. You didn't feel like you were really in the game like you do in Virtua Cop 1 and 2. So this was technology that was introduced through Virtua Cop 1 and 2, but it was later used in pretty much every light gun game that followed. So what we're going to do today is we're going to experience both of these games. We're going to dive into first Virtua Cop 1, followed by Virtua Cop 2. So let's get started. Alright, so we're going to jump into Virtua Cop 1 first, and I'm going to jump into arcade mode. So I'm actually using the Sega Saturn version today for this video. And the reason for that is I just find that it works a little bit better. So we're going to go into beginner mode because it's been a really long time since I played this game. So right off the bat, what's really cool about this game is it gives you an indication as to where different characters are going to be popping out. So most light gun games didn't give you this option. This was the first one that gave you the option to kind of give you the warning as to like where guys would be popping out. If we go back to other games of this time period, let's think of Lethal Enforcers, for example. They would pretty much just pop out, and if you didn't notice them, like say somebody jumped out in the corner of the screen, you were kind of SOL. You weren't going to pick up on them until they shot you and you lost a life. So this gives you a little bit more of a fighting chance. I'm not sure that it really makes it easier, but it definitely gives you, that indication at least, which is definitely cool. When they give you that little circle crosshair sort of setup there, you still have to aim within that circle. It's not a tight enough circle where any shot in there is going to, kill the character that you're trying to take out, but it at least gives you, that indication and wakes you up a little bit. So the other really cool thing about this game is, I'm trying not to hit that. I always get that civilian there. I remember that from the old arcade game version. One shot pretty much takes them out, but to kind of eliminate the risk of missing, I'm usually shooting multiple times in each circle just to make sure that, like that, I try to shoot just once, missed, and they got me. So you definitely want to fire a couple shots just to make sure that you get them, because you might miss that first shot. Typically I find that I'm doing 2 shots, like that one again. I missed the first one, got him with the second. And you'll also notice that the color around the little circle indicator changes. So it starts off as green. Green means that you're safe, and then it starts to go yellow to orange to red. Red means that they're pretty much firing at you right then and you're going to lose a life. And as you go, some of the guys take longer than others. Some of them are pretty much red or orange right off the bat. That guy went to orange pretty quickly. So you just have to be ready. You're going to take some shots. That's just the way that the game works. So both of those guys lined up, and if I had shot twice instead of just once, I probably would have gotten the guy behind him. The other issue you always run into is they love to have civilians pop out. And if you're firing multiple times, you might get the character you're trying to take out with the first shot, and that second shot might just automatically line up with the civilian. So you gotta kind of, just be on edge like there. They love to pop out. And then I saw the civilian there, so this guy pops out right after, and I wasn't ready to fire. Get him that time at least. So another cool advancement about this game is you get a different reaction out of each character based on where you shoot them. So these guys I'm getting in the stomach, they're reacting a certain way. That time I got them in the chest, reacted differently. So it's not a game that's programmed, the same way for each character with every shot. Each shot's going to be a little bit different. Not that there's a ton of variations, but there's at least a good 5 or 6 different variations to the reactions that you'll get when you shoot these guys. So I seem to be aiming pretty much right to the chest, so all these have been the same. That one was a little bit higher up. If you get them in the face, they kind of fall backwards. The chest, they kind of drop forward. Got lucky on that. I forgot that they have the little axe guys that start popping out, about midway through this level. Oh, the grenades too. Stuff you forget about. So you can tell that the technology from this game was used for some of the later games like Time Crisis, for example, which is much more popular than this game, but you can definitely tell that Time Crisis followed the lead and utilized the advancements that were brought forth with Virtua Cop. And the second version of this, which we'll get into in just a couple minutes here, is a lot better than this one in my opinion. It just depends on, I think what really boils down to in terms of what people like is what they grew up playing and what they remember playing more of. So I remember the second one more so than the first one. I was pretty young when these came out, but I remember playing the second one first, and then eventually I was exposed to the original one a little bit later. So, what you grew up playing and remember most usually tends to be your favorite, but I find that the aiming is a little bit better. The crosshairs are much more prominent in the second game. So this one, they're pretty small, which is good and bad. You can kind of pinpoint different characters maybe a little bit easier, especially when you have to work around the civilians there that tend to pop up like that one just did. With the broader one that you'll see in the second game, which we'll get into in a second or two, is it's a little bit harder to pinpoint, like areas like this where you have a lot of guys popping out in the same area. I find that the bigger crosshairs, you just tend to hit everybody in the area versus being able to single out like here the ones that you want to get. Trigger's getting a little squeaky here. Put in the overtime. The other thing here is you actually run out of lives on here. So it's not your typical game where, hey, you can keep getting through here by, hold your fire, I should read the instructions, by just throwing in more coins. Not that obviously this is emulation, so I'm not having to worry about coins, but you have to be pretty skilled and I'm not gonna make it out of this. It's all already. Yeah. So like that. I ran out of so many lives that I hit game over. Now I'm not sure if that's exactly the same on the arcade version. Again, I'm on the Saturn version. That's how it works here at least. But it might be different with the arcade version. It probably is, because obviously the goal of that is to get you to spend more money by putting in more coins. But with this particular version, select, for this particular version, you run out of lives and then you have to start over. So I kind of like that because I'm not crazy about games where you can just keep pumping money into it and then be able to, advance through the game. I think you have to have enough skill to be able to get through there. And if we're just pumping money into it, then as long as we have enough bankroll, we're going to get to the end of that game. So let's jump into Virtua Cop 2. All right, so here we are, Virtua Cop 2. Let's get it going. Arcade version again. Again, I'm in the Sega Saturn version today rather than arcade. And you can see major difference here right off the bat is take a look at the crosshairs on here. Much larger, like I said previously in this video. Definitely more prominent on the screen, which is good and bad depending on what you're looking to do. If you're looking to pinpoint certain characters in the game, then it can be a little bit more challenging. Colors on the indicators there, a little bit different. You have to get used to them, but I find that this just works a lot better. Again, this is also the game that I am a little bit more accustomed to playing. You also have to get used to the characters in the game looking a little bit different. So they're not all, the other one you could definitely tell. This one they're wearing different colors, so you have to kind of get used to it. Some of them look very similar to the civilians in the game, so just want to make sure that you're getting the right guys, not hitting civilians, otherwise you're going to lose those lives. So here I'm a little hesitant to shoot because I don't know which are which there. And you can shoot through things here, which up until the Virtua Cop games, there were no like-on games where you actually would shoot through glass or anything like that. So this kind of added that element, which does come down to the 3D technology as well. You can see it just much better with this game than the previous one. It's crazy the muscle memory that you have with some of these older games, and this is another one I haven't played in forever. Probably, easily 20 years, but probably even longer than that. And I just remember where, they'd be, popping out as I take out a civilian there. But all in all, pretty good. My accuracy's not great, but I'm also firing multiple shots in those indicator circles to make sure that I don't miss. So like that guy hanging out of the window there doesn't have an indicator around him because he's a civilian, but really looks to be dressed the same way. See? They kind of trick you there. Good tracking on the crosshairs though, they move really nicely on here. And that's more specific to the emulation platform that I'm using here, which is Batocera, but still worth mentioning. I was trying to have good accuracy and it wasn't working for me. I was catching too many bullets. Still catching too many bullets. They make it challenging too because you're actually moving along with these guys moving, so. Almost took him out. Oh, turd. Oh, come on. I was starting off strong. I don't know about now. Oh. Not doing good at all now. It's the camera movement that's throwing off my aim. That's my story and I'm sticking to it here. Shoot this. Alright, scene 2, 3 lives, and I would imagine I'm quickly running out of lives too here. You only get so many chances on this version. Forgot about that guy jumping on you. I was hoping there's no civilians because I just went crazy on that one. Go ahead, pop out. Nope. They just want you to think that they're gonna. Oh, automatic. Didn't see that guy down there. One life left. So you really need the indicators here to be able to see who's you know, a civilian and who's not, because again, they do look exactly the same. Just hoping nobody walks out, because just peppering those guys. Ooh. You always do for a civilian somewhere. Come on, where we go? Oh, there we go. So, ran out of lives there. Alright, so I had an absolute blast diving into these two titles with you guys today, as always. Not just because it's a trip down memory lane, because I did grow up playing these titles. Unfortunately, I played the second one prior to the first one back in the day, so it kind of ruined the first one for me, just because with video games, it's not always the same as movies, for example, where usually the original one is the best one, and then everything that follows slowly runs downhill. With video games, sometimes the later ones are better, because you put out a first version and you find out what works and what doesn't work, and you know where you need to make improvements. With the next release, you can implement those improvements. And that's what they did here with Virtua Cop. The first one was great, but the second one runs a little bit smoother, the aiming's better, the reloading's a little bit crisper, just everything about it just works better in my opinion. So that kind of ruins the first one, but you have to remember where it all started and pay respects. So what I love most about this is, though, it's a pivotal part of the history of light gun games, because so many new technologies were introduced on these two titles that were later implemented into so many games that followed. We wouldn't have the version of Time Crisis that we all know and love without these two titles. So you definitely got to pay your respects to the originals, the ones that put out all of this stuff for everybody else to kind of follow the guidelines of. So really love these titles. If you haven't checked them out yet, definitely check them out because they're really a lot of fun. And they're not only fun, they're challenging as well. You have a limited amount of lives, so you really have to practice these games. You have to get used to them. And you can see from the gameplay demos here today, I'm not the best at them. I got some work to do if I want to actually get out of the first level. So definitely a lot of fun to be had here. Check them out if you haven't already. But that's going to do it for this video today. You guys know the drill. If you enjoyed this episode, smash the like button, share it with your friends, but check back with us every Monday and Thursday for new episodes of Forgotten Favorites. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, be sure to do that to stay in the loop for all our future episodes. So that's going to do it for today. I'm RetroPie Guy. This is Forgotten Favorites. Until next time, thanks for watching.